Tell me what your daily life's like. What's your habits during the day?
It's very planned. I have lots of rules, which seem to have come out of nowhere. But I set rules really quickly, and things become routine really quickly if I start doing something different. It's not got much variety, and it's based on appeasing that voice that's in my head.
So describe that to me then, if you kind of slow it down a little bit. The rules come in very quickly, and so as soon as you hear a rule, you abide by it. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, I set my own rules. It's like my life is really restrictive and rigid and inflexible.
Right.
But it's the voice that sets them, but I know I am the voice, whereas before I used to see the voice as an outside entity, but it's not, it's part of me. But everything from the moment I wake up is planned. And
are you the voice, or are you the one that listens to the voice? When you're saying it's a separate entity, or it's part of you, it seems quite confusing.
yeah, well, I used to think it was an outside voice that I could hear, that I was trying to appease, like a godlike voice that I was trying to appease. But through therapy, it's understanding that it's part of the ego and the patterns that I've learned, and a way of managing, or how I see managing and keeping safe. But I hear the voice in my head all the time telling me what to do.
Do you think it's actually talking to you then? Does it say your name and then say do this or do that? Or does it just say it?
It doesn't say my name, but it just says things all the time. Okay. And the rules, and so I follow them, because there's anxiety if I don't, or there's things go wrong if I don't. So I must follow them, and it's like that from first thing in the morning, and as soon as I wake up, it's there. But it's like I've got a very rigid timetable, that I must get up at a certain time, I must be out of the house by a certain time, I must I used to do exercise on a morning, but I struggle now with like fatigue, so I do as much walking or as running as I can, and then I've got to like do that, and then be in the house at a certain time, go to my mum's at a certain time, do certain things, and have things in place at certain times, and the way that I check things as well, checking things like my alarm clock. I have to do certain routines with checking my alarm clock.
What are those routines?
I don't know where it's come from, but it's in threes. It makes me feel comfortable. So like, I've got several alarm clocks. I used to have 7 at the most, but I've got down to 1, 2, 3 now, and possibly 4 when I'm a bit. But I check them in a certain way. It's like 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. And if I get disrupted or anything during them, I have to start the routine again.
What will happen if you don't?
I can't sleep. I can't settle. I can't. It's not an option, right, sort of thing.
Do you know that you think it's not an option, but it's an option?
It doesn't feel like that because of the anxiety and the worry, and then I can't sleep. So it's like, well, you can't sleep because you haven't done your routine. I should have just done my routine and then I'd have gone to sleep. Then I worry that I'm going to be up late in the morning or tired, so I'm not going to be able to do my morning walk or my morning run, and it has a knock-on effect and that kind of thing.
So the knock-on effect that you have from not doing something is stories upon stories upon stories, and each story gives your body a feeling, and when you get the feeling then, or you can't sleep, you tell yourself a can't sleep story.
Yeah.
So, like you said, that these routines that you do, or OCDs that you do, are very rigid.
Mm.
So when I explained to you and said the brain wants to keep you safe, it will literally keep you in a small box to keep you safe. And ultimately your box is getting smaller and smaller because it gets very rigid. So everybody has the what I call the schizophrenic voice, and it's a recording in your brain from your environment. You don't elect to record it because you've never said, what I do on the morning is, or the night before, is I write myself a list consciously, and in that conscious list I write, tomorrow I have to tap that 3 times, and I have to tap the other clock 3 times, and I'll tap the other clock 3 times. Would you logically write that down for your life?
No.
No. So then you're saying it's me doing it, which it is, but you're listening to a recording, because you wouldn't logically write all these things down, would you? So that means logically writing down, when I get older, I'm going to react by having an eating disorder. I'm going to spend the whole life in my own prison that's in my head, and I'm going to do all these things. And it's based on what? Based on a collection of stories that you have.
Mm.
And so we're very good at listening to the schizophrenic voice. Majority of people do it. Majority of people feel they're not good enough, or they'll do that, or they'll say, oh, I'll do this because this will make me look good, and it doesn't make you look good. Or I'll do this, or I'll say that, or, I'll hide myself by behaving like this, or I'll do whatever. Yeah. So it tells you all these things, and then you listen to them, and you believe it's talking to you. And what you say is, for lots of people, for a few seconds on the morning you're okay, and if you've gotten bad news the night before, then you get reminded of it. So in that reminder you think, well, why does that reminder come in? Because it's a recording. It reminds you of what happened the day before, and so that's what your recording's doing.
Mm.
So it's a recording in your brain that you listen to. But you didn't record all that stuff in your brain.
And it panics when that routine is going to be disrupted. Like I know, like on a Friday at 9:30 on a morning.
Does it panic?
What I'm doing? Yeah.
Does it panic, or does it give you a feeling that you're observing of panic in your body?
It tells me to panic. It's like a warning,
right.
And I feel physically panicked.
Then what is it?
I don't know. It's like, I know my mum's got an hospital appointment next week, and it's like, right, so all that I've been able to think about since then, a lot of the time, it's like, well, if I do that early, if it's half an hour earlier, and then I can get to hers for this time, and then then if I get back at this time, I can carry on with my routine, but then I will have missed this, so if I put that on at the end, and it's just all that calculating.
What's it telling you that story for?
To make sure that I can fit everything that I need to in. And
into what?
My day, that I feel my day feels better. I have like a code for different things. An okay day for me, I don't like it, but an okay day, one that I can manage, is one when I'm not really fatigued, so I can do my exercise-based routines. I do my routines and I haven't eaten too much. That's an okay day for me. I don't like it, but that's a fine, okay day for me.
Who decides that's an okay day?
It's a manageable day. It's a day that I can cope with, that I'm not too anxious, I'm not too emotional, I'm not actively suicidal, and I'm not really upset. It's like I can manage days like that. It's when days are different to that, so maybe I've eaten too much, or I'm tired that I can't do my routine, or my routine's threatened. Okay. Those are really bad days.
So you're saying that something else owns you then?
It feels like that. It feels that like I'm a slave to the voice, whether it's telling me you can't eat that or you can eat that, that's got too many calories in. Well, if you have that now, you can't have anything later. It's the same voice that's saying about getting my clothes out in a certain way, putting the knives and forks in a certain way in the house. It's the same voice that is saying these things, and it's the same voice that influences my emotions and influences whether I can, how I feel and stuff. Because I feel better when I'm not as anxious or as worked up when I've done like my routines and stuff.
Whose voice is it?
I don't know. It's just a voice.
So then why do you listen to just a voice when you don't know who it is? You say it's the same voice, and it makes you have a feeling. So if say someone were to tell you a joke and you thought it was funny, it's a thought it was funny. The thought it was funny is going to make you laugh. It's going to, kind of order your body to laugh. Yeah. If you have something that you think is upsetting, it's going to make you feel upset because you're telling your body to feel upset. So it's just your body responds to the thought. So you're responding to the voice. What makes you listen to the voice?
Because of the
response?
Yeah.
What makes you go along with the response? You're observing the thought and listening to it. You're then observing the feeling in your body. You don't want to feel this uncomfortable feeling, and so to avoid the uncomfortable feeling, you go along with what it says, but you always feel uncomfortable.
Yeah, it's the.
Isn't it creating the uncomfortable feeling in the first place?
It is, but not doing what the voice is telling me, not doing my routines and not doing those things. It's a worse feeling than, even though I don't like doing them, and the not doing them is worse than the doing them. I don't like being controlled. I feel as if I'm being controlled by the thoughts and that I have to do these certain routines or OCD or whatever you want to call it. But the thought of not doing them, because there's been times when I haven't been able to do them, that it's sort of like I get a punishment for not doing them.
So what would happen to you?
Anxiety.
Another feeling?
Yeah.
So what if you...
I end up like punishing myself for not doing them. So I'll either, because I've got the diagnosis or I meet the criteria with my eating of atypical anorexia nervosa or binge eating disorder, I will do one or the other. So as a punishment for like not doing my routines, I'll either not eat or I'll either have some binges. And it's like I don't like the consequences of not doing the routine, so part of me sees it as a harm reduction thing. If I do my exercise routines and I do my other routines with stuff in certain places and I don't eat that much and nobody's upset me, I can have an okay day eating, which
And
I can
what
eat
if
sensibly.
You've got these labels.
They're all connected, which is why in a previous video I found it really difficult that the eating disorder service said we just want to talk about food, we don't want to talk about your routines or your OCDs, because some of them, not all of them, my routines are to do with burning calories and that kind of thing. So they are all interwoven, and which is why I think, you know, it's important to see people as a whole rather than just separate diagnoses, because although some of my OCD routines are not to do with food or exercise based, like checking an alarm clock and putting my clothes in a certain area and stuff, some of them are. So I think the voice just doesn't switch and go, oh, I'm going to be an eating disorder voice today, or I'm going to be it's mixture, it's all entangled.
Well,
does that make sense?
It makes the only sense, really, doesn't it? Because you're not bits out sectioned off. You are a whole. You know. So, but you said my OCD. You're carrying it like a suitcase. It's mine. Don't come near my OCD. Like the your clothes, but it's like then, you know, you've kind of labelled it as it is really and said this is mine. It's not really yours.
No, I think I'm learning that I keep falling into that trap. Now I keep trying to say to myself, I'm experiencing it.
Well, you're entertaining it. You've got your clothes on because you wanted them. Yeah, so you might have not have chose to have these, but you're entertaining them. You're interested in them. So the connection that you have with all of these is part of a relationship, that you have a relationship with an eating disorder. You have a relationship with, you know, having routines, as you say, or the OCD as you'd be diagnosed with. So these are relationships that you're having that come first before relationships with people.
Yeah.
So
these are the priority.
These are the priority
and I have put them, and I don't feel as awful now that I'm understanding about mental illness and the way the mind works, but at the time I felt really awful that I would put it above, like when my grandma was ill and stuff like that. We're like, well, I've got to go to the gym, I've got a step class here, and then after it I've got an out, and it's like I want to be with her and I want to do those, what I see as normal emotions, and be there when somebody's ill, but my routines and the voice overpowers that, and
your interest in the routines and the voice,
and the influence that I put on the voice and the power that I give it overrides everything else. You know, I can, if like my mum's got a hospital appointment at a certain time and it's like I don't know how I'm going to fit that round, or I can be quite hysterical, I can be quite, you know, panicky and fearful and really quite distressed because it's going to have an impact on my routine and stuff. But you're right, it does take the relationship I have with the voice, or I used to call it my demon because I used to think it was an outside thing. It does take, I can't think of the word, over relationships with people. I don't have relationships with people. I try not to.
You have a relationship with managing fear. So that ultimately, all of these, you know, these labels that you've got are about really having a relationship with fear. That's what you have an intimate relationship.
But then am I thinking about, I've never thought about this before, am I choosing to have that relationship? Because to me, it's safer than having a relationship with a normal person. Well, because from very little, I've told myself, and I've told anybody else that I'd listen, I don't like people, I don't want people, and I don't need people.
Well, with people, it started off this relationship. With people, you know, it started off being fear-based because of the abuse that you went through, or the rape that you went through time and time again. So your world wasn't safe, and so, you know, then you're maladaptive. You adapted then to the brain's trying to keep you
Yeah,
safe.
I didn't understand it were a link to do with that. I just knew from a very early age I'd never get married, I'd never have children, I'd never be close to anybody. I stopped calling my mum and dad, and my grandma. I used to use their first name, and that kind of thing. But yeah, I think the relationship I have with this voice, no matter whether it's doing the eating disorder voice, the OCD voice, or whatever,
They're all
it's
the same
it's
voice.
for me, it's been safer than actually having been in a relationship with somebody else. Because I know my friend, who I've known for a very long time, she kept saying, I'm your friend, and I'm like, no, you're my colleague, I work with you, you're my boss. She's like, no, I'm your friend. It's like, I'd never sort of like admit it, because I've had this thing that you don't get close to people, you don't trust people, because they want something from you, and even if they're being nice, they're just tricking you because they will pull the rug from under you. Yeah. So I've never been trustworthy of people, even when they're being nice, because I think that's a trick. Because like I said, when I was being abused, I can't recall being threatened or anything like that. It was nice and meant to feel normal. So I've never even trusted people who are nice and friendly with me, and have consistently been nice and friendly with me. I've always felt it's a trick, and as soon as I fall for it, as soon as I trust them or think that they're okay, that's when they're going to turn on me.
When am I going to do that?
Don't know yet. It's still there. That
Right.
it's not real. You're gonna change your mind, or you're gonna be like that. You might shout at me, or you might say that I've done something wrong, or that you'll say I don't want to see you anymore because you're not worth bothering about, and those kind of things.
Like
no, but
to you?
To myself, yeah.
Yeah. So you speak like that?
Yeah, to myself. I wouldn't speak to anybody else like that, but I can be. One thing that I've learned from you is that I am very abusive to myself.
So you're putting that and saying that's going to be me?
Yeah.
And do I speak like that to you? Do you logically believe I would?
Not 100%. There's still a bit of doubt, because I can't believe that somebody would be bothered about me, or somebody might yeah, it's like when you say stuff that I might have said like a year ago, it's like, oh, somebody listened to me. You're like, how come you've remembered that? And it's like, it's a bit of a novelty or a bit of a surprise, because I just expect to be dismissed. I expect to be an afterthought. I expect to be just you like used in a way of like what I can give. Like I'll say, my mum's not bothered about me, it's just that I can take her out, because I can drive and I can take her out, but she's not bothered. It's just what I can do for her, because I can help her around the house and stuff. And so these are the things that I tell myself and what I believe are true, and I'm always waiting, or I'll read into stuff. Like there's sometimes after our session I'll be thinking, she's not bothered about me anymore because she said that, and I won't be going next week, and stuff like that. I pick at everything, and I analyse everything and overthink everything, but I feel like I need to, because I don't want to be tricked by somebody.
So what do you think so far that why should you not be cared about?
Because I don't feel that I'm worth bothering about. Like I always think, if you have another client and you're full, take my place. I don't I'm not worth.
Has that ever happened?
No.
Okay, so as we discussed about how the schizophrenic part of your brain, the egoic brain lies to you, and it's so far, regardless of what you predict for the future, so far when I said I care about you, that's what you've received, and you've deserved to receive it, and you've continued to receive it, and so far it's lied.
Yeah, so far.
Yeah, as far as you know, so far it's lied.
Yeah.
So, what do you think about that so far?
That I still need to be on my guard. I'm still that hyper vigilant person. I'm still that person. Although I've changed a lot, I'm still that person that when the phone rings, I won't answer it. And even if somebody knocked at my door the other day, and I have my blinds shut so people can't see that I'm in or anything, but I could see they were there. I couldn't even sit in the lounge and carry on sitting where I was. I had to go hide. I still was that little girl who used to hide in the cupboard when somebody came at home.
So what about the so far with us two? So we're not talking about somebody knocking at your door, we're talking about this. We're talking about our relationship that we've built with each other. That I care about you. And so far, what you're saying is, this has lied to you.
So far, but you might.
But what you're saying is, but I might let you down. Okay. Does it have a time limit then of when you might believe, or do you know that it's just a recording that says exactly the same thing to you day in, day out, year in, year out? At what point could you consider not believing that voice? That
I don't know.
Okay, so you're always going to believe it.
I'd like to think not, but it seems quite alien, and I feel that as soon as I say, right, that voice is wrong and I'm going to trust that person, they'll do something to hurt me.
Then how come when you've said other things, when you've had a relationship with society or the world, in terms of your relationship was to be invisible, and then you realised that you weren't invisible?
Yeah.
And let some of the world in, you began to let some of the world in. So when did you decide to not believe that? And which part of you decided that?
I don't know.
But the recording says exactly the same thing. So what stopped you being interested in that part of the recording enough to stop it?
I don't know, my world is definitely wider than what it's ever been now. How it sounds really bizarre that people are people, or people have the possibility of being people, where I just used to think that like I was invisible and everything was a setup. Very much, I've not seen it, or I've not seen it for a long time. I think I did see it once time, but it's been described as like the Truman Show, the film. I used to think everything was, I was in this weird world and everything. I don't know, really. But now people are starting to be people, which seems, I don't know, it sounds really funny, but I can acknowledge that people have lives and that you exist outside this room, whereas not that long ago it were like you just live in this room and you stay in this room, and when I leave this room you don't exist anymore. I'm learning to accept, I don't know why it suddenly changed, but that you exist outside of this room, and when I walk down the street there are other people and they're not just put there to make the place look busy, they are people with lives and stuff.
So the whole world evolved around you.
Yeah. And I was just being with that voice. I can remember going for walks and walking into a tree and stuff because I wasn't aware of my surroundings. I was too busy calculating, listening to the voice, talking back to it or whatever, being in it, that I'd walk into trees, that, I'd have incidents where I'd end up in the middle of the road and stuff and not realise because I was just...
How do you know it was you that was talking back to it and it wasn't all the recording talking to itself? Because that's what the ego does, it just chatters all day long.
It felt like a lot of times it was having an argument with itself. Should I have lunch? Should I not have lunch? No, don't have lunch. Well, should I have lunch? Because that's not good if you don't have lunch. Well, if you have the bit of lunch, and it just felt like that we're arguing with it all the time.
As you're saying it now, so you were aware that when you're recalling the recording to me, you're the one that's the observer to it. It's the observer to the voice that's telling me. Are you aware of that? And that when you're observing something, so if I were to say what happened yesterday, the recording would tell me what's happened yesterday, and you'd be the one that's listening to it telling me what's happened yesterday. Are you aware of that? So when it's telling you something, you get up and it's as if it's saying it to you afresh. When you wake up tomorrow, it will be like it's saying something to you all fresh and new, to tap. And so that's what it's telling you to do. Yeah,
it doesn't say you did double yesterday, you don't have to do it today.
No, it just says the same thing over and over again. But it's not actually saying it to you, it's just a recording that you've started something, you've been interested in that. So we'll keep this then, we'll keep doing it, like a pop-up. Are you interested in the pop-up? You click on it. Yeah, that's what you do with pop-ups, you click on them and go, I'm interested in you, I'm interested in you. And then it becomes a pattern of behaviour, and then it becomes a condition. And so it's just because we're interested in it. But the things that you've stopped doing, being invisible, is because you're no longer interested in being invisible. So it didn't decide to stop it. You stopped being interested in it. And so that's why these things aren't you. These things are things that you carry. But people say that, that's my cup. But the thing is that at some point you put the cup down. The only difference is you don't put these things down because you fear the consequence. The consequence for you so far has been what? Well, my world has expanded.
It's also brought an additional... I've always been very, very hyper-vigilant of everything, but I think because now more people are people, I'm more on alert and I'm on edge all the time, that people might speak to me or interact with me or hurt me or want something from me. I think that's increased. I'm always on the alert for danger, but my danger is different to what other people's danger is. My danger is I'm on alert for people or and people who might even just talk to me or interact with me. I don't know, like I say, my day-to-day life is very small, as in it's limited to a few things and places and things that I don't even know that I do because I've done them so long. It's normal to me. I can't even think because they are normal behaviours for me, but other people might see them as a bit that they're not normal. But like looking in the mirror, that's not something normally that I do. And paying attention to myself and self-caring. I don't bother about myself, or I don't give myself any worth or any bother about. That's what my daily life is like. It's just getting through it as I see as safely as possible, but that's usually doing me harm. Me because thinking I'm keeping myself safe is doing different forms of self-harm and that kind of thing.
But that's the relationship, is, you become a masochist towards yourself, so you're far too busy in that.
I'd never hurt anybody else, and I'd be really worried about upsetting people, and like I overthink when I've interacted with something. Oh, I've said that wrong, I shouldn't have said that wrong, she don't like me now, I shouldn't have done that, oh, I've done that wrong. It's like that overthinking and overanalyzing when I've had an interaction with somebody. But how I treat and speak to myself, for me, it's just normal because I've always been like that. But through reflection and talking to you, it's like harming myself, whether I'm saying negative things to myself or whether I'm like harming my body in different ways and stuff. And I didn't really see that. Because it was just something that I'd been doing since I was little, getting in a scalding hot bath when I were having a bath. That's just what I did. And
so you've become the perpetrator against yourself.
Yeah.
And so when you're in this, kind of in the soup of it, then if you stay in the soup, you can tell yourself the same story over and over again. So it's a repeating of the rapes. And this is how my world started, this is how the world is. So you've kind of drawn into your own little world and keeping all this. And you think, because you're interested in the voice, that it's actually keeping you safe. Where it's not, it's keeping you in the danger. But then what you're doing is you're still blaming the world for the danger when it's you.
Yeah, I know you asked me loads of times and said actually that the abuse has stopped now. He hasn't done anything to me for a long time because it was when I was little, but yet I have continued punishing myself and hurting myself, and I've taken on that role of hurting my body and hurting my mind.
So you hold a grudge?
Against myself, yeah. And I don't know if it's because I feel that I let that happen. I feel that...
What choice would you have at 5 years old? Would you say to a 5-year-old, they're to blame?
No.
Then why say that to you?
Because I didn't... Because I just didn't understand it and didn't... I tried to do things about it in my own way, but I wasn't assertive enough at that age to go against what an adult, you do what adults and older people say, you know, as a child, it's like I didn't have the courage to say, I don't want to do this. I tried to make excuses, and I feel I don't know. I don't feel guilty, and I don't feel, oh, why did it have to happen to me? I've never thought I'd those kind of thoughts. I've just accepted that it's something that happened, and I didn't know it was that influenced all the problems that I've had since, until therapy.
But it's the relational patterns as well that's also played a role in how people related to you, how your family related to you.
Yeah, because I changed, and became quite violent towards my dad, and withdrawn, and which will put stuff down as being shy, being rude, being those kind of things. So I listened to those adults around me and put to one side what happened, what I didn't like, and just struggled to try and get through the day, and hating myself so much because I didn't want to be a rude person. I didn't want to be bad. I didn't want to be naughty. But that was just my spontaneous reaction. When I used to walk past my dad, I used to kick him, and I didn't understand why, so I just thought it must be me. I must be a bad person.
And I guess as well, growing up in certain eras, and even not really, sometimes people blame children for things and say they're doing this or they're doing that as if it's the child, not recognising the child can only learn from its environment and reacts to it. And, you know, so it's that people often used to blame children a lot for their behaviour. It's like they're reacting to their behaviour.
And those people, I didn't have many people around me because I hadn't got loads of aunties and uncles or anything like that, or cousins, but like my mum and dad's friends would see me being like that with my dad and agree that it was awful. What I was doing was awful. I was really nasty.
Did anybody ask why you were doing it?
No, and people didn't know that how bad I felt about myself. Like I can remember at such a very young age, crying in bed on a night, crying to God that why did you make me live? Why couldn't I have been a miscarriage? I didn't understand. So I must have been young because I didn't understand all those things. But praying to God and praying for me to make him make me a nice person, because all around me saw my behaviours. And so even at school, even though when I wasn't violent at school, but I was shy, withdrawn, quiet, doesn't ask questions. So there were always a criticism.
So your environment then, if you think about never ask the question about a child. It's always a criticism, or you have to be doing something for someone else to make, at school she's too this or she's too that, and it's like always being told that being a human being isn't enough. We have to be something else for someone else that we'll never ever probably see again for the rest of your life. The teachers at school.
Primary school, I had to be dragged there kicking and screaming. High school, there was that response, you will go. And so I went, but I was invisible and wanted to be invisible. And I just used to spend most of my time with my fingers crossed going, please don't hit me, please don't hit me. So how I learned anything is beyond me. But I felt I wasn't good enough compared to everybody else.
Do you realise now that, as you thought before, it was God punishing you, that it's not, that it's human beings? It has nothing to do with God. Prison is the one that's been set as human beings telling each other what they should do and how they should do it. But have you ever heard God tell you to do those things? You've always heard a voice from another human being telling you how to do those things. So it's where we're told how we should be, what we should do, and when we should do it. We're always ticking a certain box. We're always meeting a certain criteria. And if you don't meet that criteria, it means, you know, to certain people that, well, you don't have that then because you don't tick this box, or you don't do that, or that's not good enough for that.
And with my overthinking and how I would dissect and analyse everything that somebody said, so if like in a school report it might say shy, needs to ask more questions,
for who do you need to ask them more questions?
I don't know, but I dissect that and read that I'm absolutely useless and I'm horrible and that kind of thing. I would, and still do, twist things, what I see, to fit in with what the voice is saying.
And that's why the voice is there, is because, you know, from your environment, if you think about when you started and you were abused, you said, you know, you had to comply with what was being done to you, and you interpreted that's you just being awkward. And your belief from that now is that people want something from you, or, you know, if they're nice, it's because they ultimately are going to whip the rug from under you.
Yeah.
So if you see how the world is, it is like that in a lot of other areas, from people that, you know, certain professions, or when you go to school, you're always having to comply and do something that somebody else wants you to do, and if you don't do it, you're going to be told that you're not good enough as a human being, so your humanness gets taken away from you. Should we sorry, we have to end this now, but should we continue this conversation? Okay. Are you okay to end that?